you have to somehow, by hook or somehow find a way to overcome this pattern and beat this pattern and get stronger eventually. I mean, how did you in your do you have anything in terms of overcoming this?
There's an assumption there that I have overcome it. There's an assumption there. But besides that, Krishna, first of all, you're in the same boat as 99.9% of people, and especially Indian devotees. So don't be, like that. And Krishna actually says it's impossible. He says, Daivi Hiesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratya, or he says very, very difficult. Duratya means dur means very, right? Very difficult. And what is difficult? To overcome the three modes of material nature that are always affecting us. We gave the example this morning, like a fish doesn't think they're in water, right? They're just used to it, right? They're home in water now? No, so we are almost always affected by the modes of material nature. So much so that we don't even realize we are. Yeah? But luckily for us, what I quoted was only the first half of the shlok. What's the second half? Anyone know? Yeah, so it's a very interesting shloka. Because on the first half he says it's really hard, and the second half he says it's really easy. How's that? Because Krishna helps. Because Krishna helps us. We can't do it on our own. We need Krishna's help. Even if you study the 12-step programs, you ever heard of Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous? So the first step is to understand I'm powerless over this addiction. The third step is God can give me that power. So that Krishna says this repeatedly in the Bhagavad Gita and in all Vedic literatures. So that's our hope. If we were gamblers, which we're not, we would put all of our money on Krishna, right? Because He can do the impossible. If we feel sometimes like our heart is like coal, right? You ever try to clean coal? Right? You wash it, what happens? It still remains black, right? But I don't know if any of you, when you were young, maybe you saw, no, probably all of you are too young to remember this, but in the old Superman movies, Superman would take coal and then he'd crush it, right? And then what would appear afterwards? A diamond, right. So sometimes Krishna, we go through difficulties in this world, but Krishna's, preparing us to make us into diamonds. And He can do it. He actually can do it. None of us can do it on our own. We all need Krishna, and we also need each other. Right? Now, yesterday, I'll get my days mixed up. Yesterday, how many people were at the Saturday program yesterday? Okay, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much. But we talked about the difference between shame and guilt, right? Was that yesterday? No? Yes? Maybe? Maybe that was another class. Okay, sorry. Anyway, guilt, like you said, you feel guilty when you take the 8 steps back. Guilt and shame are a little different, but in a very significant way. Guilt is, I made a mistake. Shame is, I am a mistake. Everything about me, right? So devotees don't want to feel shame because we are not a mistake. Jivera Surupoy Krishna Nitya. We are eternal servants of Krishna. In our pure state, we are lovers of God. We are the soul, we're not this body. Guilt can help our bhakti, right? Okay, I've made that mistake, let me not do it again. Okay? But shame, just saying, oh, I'm so sorry. Shame usually, it leads to inertia and the mode of ignorance. So, and when we make a mistake, we just pick ourselves up and engage in devotional service again. Because the purification is the devotional service. So we could go on and on about that. The only thing we have to avoid, we talked about this yesterday in the temple, is we just want to, when we make a mistake, we engage in devotional service again, but we don't want to say, oh, that was, Krishna will forgive that, Krishna, and we just keep on doing all kinds of bad things and just say, Krishna will forgive, Krishna will forgive. That's not good. That's like using Krishna as like a doormat, wiping your feet on Krishna, right? So we don't want to do that. So it's good to feel some repentance, some guilt, and then move on. How does that sound?
Yeah.
And that, remember the word urge from the last slide? Krishna's waiting to hear our really strong desire. Our really strong desire. Sometimes we're like, oh, Krishna help. Yeah. Krishna's like, oh, okay. Yeah. But it's like, Krishna help! Right? He compares it to the chanting should be like a child calling out for its mother. I think probably men know this as well, and women know this maybe even a little bit more. Babies have different kinds of cries, right? There's the kind of cry where you can almost ignore the child, it's not a big deal, but there's that one cry where you have to drop everything and go see what's happening with your child, right? There's that one, so that's that strong urge, that loyam, as you translated so nicely, then Krishna really responds. How does that sound? Other comments, questions so far? Is there any water? If not, that's okay. I don't mean to.
I brought the bottle. I'm bringing that from the car.
Okay, no problem. It's not the end of the world. I will survive without water. And I'll survive with water. It's amazing in Singapore you can drink tap water, right?
Yeah.
That's wild. Can you imagine doing that in India? You'd die in a week. That's true.
Just wanted to add that a lot of these IT companies, tech companies are making money by just allowing you to ask questions, right? The Google search, for example, or ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's right. Very good. Did you hear what he said? Right? They make all their money. ChatGPT makes all of its money on asking questions. Yeah, very good. Devotees sometimes check out ChatGPT. I didn't do it today, but like help me give a class on questions based on the Bhagavatam. I didn't do that, by the way. Yes, Boo.
I mean, I don't want to be the sole.
It's all right. I think everyone likes the question. Don't feel guilty.
This concept of sublimation, right? Not forceful controlling, but sublimation of desires, which
Right.
has to naturally occur. They say. I mean.
I'm not sure I understand the point. Sublimation
means it's the beads, right, in our personality, in terms of obstructive in your path to.
We have personalities. Okay.
Yeah, and there are certain aspects or characteristics that don't go well in seeking the absolute.
Don't go well in spiritual pursuits.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what's the question?
So the question is, I have heard this that desires have to be sublimated rather than forcefully.
You control it.
Instead of gotten rid of, they should be sublimated. I'm not sure what we mean by sublimated though.
Like it should come from inside. It should come from.
It should die down on its.
It should die down on its own.
Yeah.
The answer to that is yeah, but.
Does that happen?
You know what yeah, but is? Yeah, yes, but. Krishna does say that in the Gita, chapter 2, verse 59. Anyone know that verse?
Chapter 259.
Chapter 2, 59. Someone look it up. Chapter 2, verse 59, Krishna says that you may remove yourself from the sense objects, but the desire remains. But by getting param drispa, yeah, go ahead.
विषया विनिवर्तन्ते निराहारस देहिनम रसवर्जम रसपसम परम दृष्टानि
Yeah, raso rasyam, yes. So you may restrict your senses from the sense objects, but the desire is still there. Right? But by getting a higher taste, it's very similar to the other question, by taking shelter of Krishna, then sense control happens automatically. So that's true. And at the same time that that's true, we still try to follow a culture and like here we have ladies over here, the men over here, there's a culture just to respect, as Prabhupada would say, the butter and fire principle. That men is like butter and women is like fire, right? And the men melt. So there's certain things that we do to just protect, that culture, society does, especially in a society like Singapore, kind of like to protect us. But the real sense control comes from having such a higher taste in Krishna consciousness that everything else doesn't make sense. It's like when I first moved to India in the 80s, I didn't know any Hindi. I still don't know much. My son speaks fluent Hindi. He was born and raised there. But when I went on and I was very poor in those days, so I used to travel third class on the trains. So everyone's speaking Hindi, and I don't understand a word of it. So it just doesn't make any sense to me, right? So when you're very Krishna conscious, sense gratification, the beauty of this world, and trying to enjoy it, it's like me on the third class train. It just doesn't make any sense. Why would anyone want to engage in sense gratification? That's stupid, right? And when we're not in good consciousness, that same sense object looks really attractive. Yeah. So repression alone does not work. Aruri Krishna Param Param Padada, because that's what impersonal people do. And they often eventually fall down into mundane consciousness. But Krishna helps the devotee. And then by getting that higher taste, then life is good. So we should really pray for a higher taste. We should actually be praying to Krishna, please give me a higher taste, please. Not that I want to enjoy bhakti, but please let me feel your presence. And that way I won't be attracted to things in this world. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Does that work for you also, Prabhu? You were to help me translate?
No, absolutely.
All right.
I think what you mentioned is absolutely true. So sometimes we are Krishna conscious, but if the things are not going our way, we kind of don't keep it in back of our mind.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, now you brought up one of the most important points in Krishna consciousness. There's only one verse that Prabhupada said which should be the guide for all devotees. And you can look it up, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
10:14:8, Srimad Bhagavatam. Tatenu kampam sukshamikshamano. So, what that verse says is, yes, when the going is going well, it's Krishna, thank you, Hare Krishna.
तत्तेनुकंपं सुश्रीमिक्षमानो भुञ्जान एवात्मकृतं विपाकं ऋत्वाग्वपुभिर्विदधन् नमस्ते जीवेत यो मुक्तिपदे सदाय भाग.
Yes, thank you. So what that verse is saying, when things go tough, our tendency is to take shelter of things other than Krishna. If things really go tough, you go online and you check your bank balance. And you say, oh, it's okay. I have 3 crores in the bank, pretty good. Or whatever, right? Or we take shelter of shopping. Or we take shelter, non-devotee, of intoxication, right? Or eating. We find different things, some more healthy than others. But really, the real test of bhakti is when the going gets tough, we take shelter of Krishna. And that verse says, with our heart, with our words, with our thoughts. And one who can do that, jiveti yo mukti pade sadaya bhakti, automatically are going to go back to Godhead in this life. Because it cuts at the very root of our existence in this material world. We tend, when things go rough, we tend to blame others. right? Or God, even. Many people blame God, right? Not necessarily devotees, but people in general, right? But if we don't blame God, and instead, as Prabhupada would say, think that my karma should have been much worse, that Krishna has minimized it, and we thank him, then there's no need for us to be in the material world. That is spiritual consciousness. Prabhupada said that should be the guide for all devotees. Because who knows what our karma is? Who knows? How old are you now?
24. 24.
24. Are you good at math? Huh?
Math?
Math.
Yes.
Okay. How old were you 12 years ago?
12.
12. Okay. How old were you 18 years ago?
14.
8 years ago? No, 18 years ago.
18. Yeah.
How old were you?
14.
18 years ago, how old were you? 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. How old were you 35 years ago?
I was not.
Malamne, right? But you were somewhere 35 years ago. So we have so many different lives. So many different lives. In the Bhagavatam class this morning, I read this, that there's a turtle that, how many were in the class this morning? So remember the turtle?
Yeah.
The turtle, once 100 is at the bottom of the ocean, and every 100 years goes up for air. 100 years. Right? And in the whole ocean, there's one piece of wood with a hole in it. And the chances in the whole ocean of that turtle popping its head and getting it stuck in the wood is greater than of the living entity taking a human birth. It's so rare. So rare, right? Because anyway, we gave the example that there's about 8 billion human beings. So just on the grass outside, there's probably more than 8 billion living entities, just on the little grass outside. What to speak of the whole planet. Right? So anyway, other questions, comments so far?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Boo.
In fact, I met someone today afternoon while walking, and we were just discussing, and then he has a taste of impersonal. So,
He leans towards impersonalism?
yeah.
Yeah.
He has a taste, and he feels that is the highest taste. So we're just discussing about soul and other things. He is quite interested in all the topics of discussion, but he has achieved, and he feels that is the highest taste what he has achieved. So how should the conversation go about, right?
What should you do when you meet someone who says the highest stage is impersonalism?
Yeah.
Well, the first question I might ask is, what authority does he accept? Does he study the Bhagavad Gita, for example, or is he a Christian or a follower of Islam?
He has studied, not from his core fraternity, so he has studied somewhat little bit of scriptures here, there, and he's following some gurus in India, so...
Well, by the way, Prabhupada generally, and his instruction to us was to never criticize other gurus by name. Instead, you can ask, what is their philosophy? And then you can say, well, that's interesting because that's not what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. So you're not criticizing the person, because sometimes they have very deep affection for that person. But you can correct. So, I mean, if a person understands Bhagavad Gita, then we can quote so many verses. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. Krishna says, pratishtaham, I, and the pratishta, the basis of Brahman. Right? And he keeps on saying, Sarvadharmam pratyajam mam. He's pointing to his chest and saying, mam ekam. Right? And anyway, there's so many verses in the Bhagavad Gita, if the person accepts that. If a person is actually an impersonalist, then that is not, that's a bona fide realization of the absolute truth. Tadati tat tat pavidas, tatvam yaj jnanam avyam, brahmeti, paramameti, bhagavan iti sabdhite. The problem is that many people are not just impersonal. So an impersonalist just is more attracted to Krishna's impersonal feature. But a Mayavadi says basically that Krishna is Maya. So the Mayavadi is an offender. Mayavadi Krishna Aparade. Lord Chaitanya said he's a walking offense. Right? Because he's saying, oh, God has no eyes, no ears, no personality. That's different than just saying I'm really attracted to the idea of the universal energy and not criticizing Krishna. So that's good. But it's well, your question is actually connected to Prabhuji's question, because we kept on saying several times when we were talking to him that we can't succeed on our own. We need help. And you don't get help from an impersonal energy. You only get help from a person. So we are lucky, even in that way, not lucky. We are fortunate that we have the shelter of Krishna who can help us. Because Brahman doesn't have a personality. Krishna has the personality of compassion, of love, of care, of gratitude. Krishna is actually grateful to his devotees. Isn't that amazing? Right? And this poor person, unfortunately, doesn't have access to that. They just think, if they only accept the universal energy, like that. There's different, it really depends on the person. Sometimes the easiest thing is to give them prasadam. Right? And one time Prabhupada was talking to John Lennon. Anyone heard of John Lennon? He was one of the original Beatles, a very famous musician. And it was John Lennon and his wife Yoko Ono. And the conversation wasn't going anywhere. Right? Prabhupada wasn't convincing him, and they weren't convinced. And then you hear on the tape, Prabhupada says, "Bring prasad." I mean, John Lennon made advancement because he let Prabhupada stay in his mansion for quite some time, but still, he just said, no need to debate, just bring prasad. Right? And for other people, just kirtan. But sometimes, but it's good for us to be sharp philosophically, so we can actually explain to somebody clearly about it could be, so if it's Shastra, we should be able to quote Bhagavad Gita. If it's just logic, we can say, so did any personalities put this thing together, or did it just happen by universal energy? Do you see anything in this room that wasn't put together by people, by a person? Right? This microphone stand is, right? There's people who designed it, right? People who got the steel from the earth, and right? So many things. Everything comes from. Can you think of something that just kind of comes from an impersonal energy? I mean, the manufacturer of this world. So it makes sense that this world also, emanates from a person. So it depends on the time, place, and circumstance. And also, we could pray to Krishna for intelligence to help this person. Because we want to introduce them to their best friend. Surinam Sarvabhutanam, Krishna says, chapter 5, verse, anyone know? 29, very good, yes. He says and Surit is a very intimate friend. There's different words for Bandhu is a name. Bandhu means friend in Sanskrit. It's more of an official friend. What's another name for friend?
Mitra.
Yes. But Surit means a very intimate friend. So we want to introduce them to their best friend. Simple as that. And preaching is really just sharing our heart. Whatever Prabhupada said, whatever you realized about Krishna, you tell that person about that. So we don't have to be a great Sanskrit scholar. I remember one time many years ago in San Diego, there was a professor who came to the Sunday feast. And the sannyasi there, Gunagari Maharaj, said, Raj, make sure you sit next to the professor at the Sunday feast. So I was going to do that, but then this brand new bhakta, only been a devotee like 2 weeks, I sat next to him. And I said, oh, what's he going to say? So I was overhearing the conversation, and so the professor said, tell me something about, what is this all about? And the new devotee said, I don't really know that much. I can only tell you the devotees are really nice and the food is great. And when I spoke to the professor afterwards, he really appreciated that, because he was speaking from his realization. Right? So we don't have to, quote 10,000, Vedanta Sutra slokas. If we know that, that's great. But if we don't, whatever we can share our realization, share our heart with someone, that's preaching. Is that all right?
Thank you.
Yes, Prabhu.
Asking this question,
How old is that child?
17
17 months. Wow. No wonder you're so happy. Your first one?
No, second one. First one and second.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna. So, asking this question specifically because you have been a devotee for so many years and also served in, let's say,
It's a nice way of saying I'm really old.
in NASA as well. So, Prabhu, how do you reconcile the Vedic cosmology with the present cosmology as which has been considered as a phenomenon in NASA, right? Because they are not reconcilable actually. Like the concept of galaxies, there are so many stars, right? The concept of light years, and the way we look at the cosmology from the planetary configurations in Vedic cosmology, right? Is how do you reconcile this? How do you understand that the living entities are present in all the planets?
I don't know. I'm not a great scholar with a fifth hand, but I know. Do you know Sarvaputta Prabhu? Have you read his books? He does a very good job of reconciling, and the whole Bhaktivedanta Institute has done great presentations on that topic. So I would just I think it's BIHS, Bhaktivedanta Institute of Higher Studies .org maybe. Anyway, and of course Sarvaputta's books would be very helpful for you. Mechanistic and non-mechanistic science. Just to give you an idea. Because Prabhupada's point was he had faith in Shastra, right? So, and he said different, sometimes the devotees say, Prabhupada said we never went to the moon. No, he said many things. He said they did go to the moon, but they just brought back some rocks. So he spent billions of dollars that could have been used so much better, right? Or that they went to, they went to Rahu instead. Anyway, different things that Prabhupada just kind of played around with different ideas about that. But Sarvaputta Prabhu has some great explanations. One of them is that just like, what is the address that I'm staying at? 834 something? Do you know the address where we're staying?
Yeah. 836.
Your
Race Road.
Your address.
Yeah.
What is it?
836. 836 Race Road.
Anyway, whatever, it's 834, right? Gulf something. What's the name of that street?
Race Road.
Race course road.
Yeah.
Yeah, Golf Course Road or something. Yeah.
Race course road.
Okay. So let's say I say you say yes, Braj Bihari, go to 834 Racecourse
Yes.
Road. Okay. So then so I'm at 834, but then I look up. They didn't tell me the apartment number. So I couldn't really enter in. They have a nice little altar there, and they have some nice Brahma young men staying there, and they have Tulsi Devi. I didn't see any of that because my address was only 834. But I didn't see it. So Sarvaputta gives that example that you can even go to other planets, but you can't necessarily enter into it and see all the variety. So like that, but so some of the cosmology, there's agreement, but yes, some of it's not. So we have faith in Shastra, but Sarvaputta, I would recommend you read some of his books. He's no longer, he passed away, but I remember I mentioned I was in San Diego, and he was there at the same time. And you know how some of us, we doodle, like sometimes to stay awake, we have a piece of paper during a class, and we maybe make some drawing or something, right? His doodling was mathematical equations. Literally, he just like during class, he would just be writing mathematical equations. God, where did we get that brain? Any other questions, comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Krishna comes in so many forms.
Krishna comes in so many forms, yes.
Forms of Narsimha, Jagannath. So many different forms.
As many as the waves in an ocean.
And also like impersonal form also, right?
Well, that's one. There's only one. There's no variety there, yeah.
So, how do we know that which form is for us? I mean, for me, how do you find out?
Do you like Krishna?
Yes.
Us. Well, no need to go anywhere else. Jiva Goswami, he in the Tattva Sandarbha, he gives a whole explanation of Krishna is the avatari, he's the original. And all these others, it's like you take a candle and you light different candles and they all have the same potency, but there's still an original candle, right? And if you're attracted to Krishna and the fact that he lifts Govardhan Hill, and that he engages in the rasa dance, and he dances on the head of Kaliya, and all those things, we're very fortunate because the most intimate understanding of the absolute truth is Krishna in Vrindavan. Because the devotees in Vrindavan have just the absolute highest love for him. In Dwarka and you go to a Lakshmi Narayan temple, and of course we have great love and affection for him, but it's very reverential. Right? Even the temple next to us, the Balaji temple, there's a lot of awe and reverence there. But ultimately in Vrindavan, it's just intimate exchanges of love. But we have a certain, our swarup Krishna will reveal gradually as we.
Start with, suppose we see the form of Lord Ram, we get stuck there. When we see Jagannath, we just get mesmerized there.
Yeah.
So whichever form comes, right, we just get stuck there. We just can't move.
Good. So you're a equal opportunity mesmerizer. That's good. In our level of Krishna consciousness, that's good. That's good. Yeah. But when we make deeper and deeper advancements, we'll naturally be attracted to a certain Ishtadev. But I think for everyone here, everyone's attracted to the Lord Jagannath, right? It's like usually often the first deity that you serve, you're very attracted to, at least on our level of Krishna consciousness. So that if you're attracted to Lord Ram and Lord Krishna and Nrsimhadev and Jagannath, you're very, very lucky. It's good. Lord Chaitanya, he was Radha and Krishna combined, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna and Nayanya. He comes specifically, if you read the 4th chapter of the Adi Leela of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he comes to taste. He can't understand Radharani. How is she so much happier than I am? How does she have more love than I am? How's it possible? So he comes as Krishna, but in the mood of Radha to taste that love. It's so intense. Yeah. So, ultimately, most followers of Lord Chaitanya are in the Madhurya Ras or in the Sakya Ras, generally. Followers of Lord Balaram or Lord Krishna, generally. But when Lord Chaitanya sees Lord Jagannath, he sees Shamsundar. He sees Krishna in Vrindavan. Right? And the whole Rath Yatra festival is pulling Krishna back to Vrindavan. It's a very intimate, spiritual, deep theology, we could say, right? That Radharani and Krishna, they meet in Kurukshetra, and you're the same Krishna, I'm the same Radha, but this is Kurukshetra. So they want to go back to Vrindavan. Which, by the way, it's interesting when you think about that, how we are affected by our environment. Now that's on a very high level, right? They saw Kurukshetra is not Vrindavan, but also you can think about that It's like the other day, I can't remember where I was. I think I was in Bali, and a devotee was going to give me a ride to a program. And they said, no, he can't go. So-and-so is going to give you a ride. And that devotee said, yes, just give me 15 minutes. Why did he need 15 minutes before giving me a ride? Anyone know? Anyone guess? He had to clean the car. It was messy. So our environment, I'm making kind of a separate point. Our environment affects us a lot. So we should really keep our room clean, keep our car clean, keep the house clean, keep our consciousness clean. You know, we're very much affected. Where we chant should be a nice sattvic atmosphere like that. Is that all right, Prabhu? Someone else had it. This is going to be question and answers instead, which is fine. Yes.
We have heard in many lectures that Krishna reciprocates based on our degree of dependence.
Our degree of
Dependence or surrender to him.
Uh-huh.
So maybe two questions I think is how do we know what is our degree currently, and how do we know that we have reached that 10%, the fully surrendered state?
How do we know our degree of surrender? And how do we know when it's 10%? Well, we can assume it's not 10%. Is that a fair assumption? For most of us? Right? You know, it's like, one for Krishna, two for Krishna, oh, one for me, one for Krishna. It's a little bit like that sometimes. So your question is, basically, how do we know when we're making spiritual advancement? Well, one simple way, and this is connected again to your question, Prabhu, Prabhupada said, is when you feel the material fever is going down. Right? You know, you put the thermometer of Krishna consciousness in your mouth and it ends up, I always use Fahrenheit, which is 98.6, but what is it, 37, 32, what's normal? 36, 37, I got it right? Yeah. So that was Prabhupada's answer. You feel that your attraction to this material world is going less. And that means your attraction to be right all the time, also your attraction for what others think of you. You know, those are on the more subtle plane. Right? So that's one way to judge. And of course the other way is that we have a taste. We actually hear that there's going to be a kirtan and we're so happy to go to the kirtan. We run into the kirtan. We wake up in the morning, we say, I get to chant japa today, I'm so fortunate. We use as much time as we can to hear about Krishna. Those are signs that we're on the right path. Is that right? None of the ladies have questions, only the men. Is that like the program here? Ladies aren't allowed to ask questions. The temple, so many ladies. Anyway, I'm not getting on the ladies' case, but I just want you to know I'm very happy if you have any questions. Any other questions, comments? Or do you tell the men what to ask and then they ask? Is that what happens? Okay, shall we carry on? All right. So there's a quality of questions. Questions control a conversation, right? You know, right? Just like, you ask me a question and I have to answer that question. I can't start talking about quantum mechanics, right? Because I'm trying to answer your question, right? Questions endear the questioner sometimes, and how being curious helps us avoid making assumptions and thus avoid offenses. Okay, so the quality of questions. Prabhupada really, this is Sanatana Goswami, and Srila Prabhupada really liked this question. The first question he had says, Ke Ami. Even before all the other, Prabhupada just focused on those two words. Who am I? Who am I? That is such a powerful question. But if someone asks you if I ask you who are you, how are you going to answer? What's your answer?
Give your name.
You give your name, okay? What's another Krishna conscious answer?
So,
I heard Amataji speak up.
Servant of Krishna.
Yes, I'm a servant of Krishna. That has a lot of implications, right? That means that if I really identify, there's 8,400,000 other ways to identify. And if I really think I'm Krishna's servant, that impacts the way I deal with other people, with other non-devotees, because there's even something called jana aparad, offenses to just regular people. It affects how I treat my spouse and my children. It affects how I treat other devotees. It affects how much sleep I get. It affects what I eat. It affects every aspect of my life. If I answer that question like you did, Mataji, right? I'm Krishna's servant. It has a lot of implications, doesn't it? To actually think of ourselves as Krishna's servant. Right? Then he goes on to say, why do the threefold miseries always give me trouble? If I do not know this, how can I be benefited? No, but Krishna, Sanatana Goswami was this brilliant person, right? And he practically ran the Nawab's government, right? And still, he's so humble. Okay, I mean, who am I? He asked Lord Chaitanya that question. So that is a very powerful question, because one question you can answer the rest of your life. Right? That one, those two words, Kayami, in Bengali. And then Arjuna asked 17 questions to Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Really powerful questions. Here's a few of those powerful questions. So the first verse, Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, what did they do? My sons were there, the Pandavas were there. They desired to fight. What did they do? That, in one sense, that's the whole, without that question, there's no Bhagavad Gita. In one sense. So it's a very powerful question. And how about this one? The sun god, this is a very intelligent question. The sun god Vivishwan is senior to you. How am I to understand in the beginning you instructed this science to him? That head scratcher, right? What is Krishna's reply? Anyone remember?
There are many births. There are many births that I have taken.
Yes, many births. Yes, I many births of you and I have taken. I can remember all of them. You forget. Yes, it's a great question. It makes total sense, right? In one sense, it's a little challenging, right? But of course, I wasn't there, but we'd assume that he said it because previously he said Karpanyatosa. I am your disciple and soul surrendered unto you. By the way, when did we go until? 7:30? 7:40.
7:45.
I just saw that. I didn't want to keep you from. You never want to keep anyone from prasadam. That's a problem. Okay. And then Parikshit Maharaj asked so many great questions of Sukadeva Goswami, and Shonaka Rishi asked so many good questions of Sutta Goswami. Right? And this Angira asked questions to Chitraketu. So some powerful questions. Since Sri Krishna, the Absolute Truth, the Master of all mystic powers, has departed for his own abode, please tell me to whom religious principles have now gone for shelter? Great question. Anyone know the answer? Srimad Bhagavatam, yes. You will gain light from this Purana. And the answer to this question was the Bhagavatam. His transcendental acts are magnificent and gracious, and great learned sages like Narada sing of them. Please therefore speak to us who are eager to hear about the adventures he performs in his various incarnations. So in one sense, the whole Bhagavatam answers this question. The king asked Sukadeva Goswami, where and when did the meeting and discussion take place between Saint Vidura and Maitreya Muni? Right? And then then 2 cantos happened because of that one question. thousands of pages of Prabhupada's purport because of that question. Now, also sometimes questions, this is a different topic, we don't have a lot of time for this, but questions can help as a service to devotees. Okay? So, King Chitraketu, I can observe that your mind is not pleased. You seem not to have achieved your desired goal. Is this because of you yourself, or has it been caused by others? Your pale face reflects your deep anxiety. Prabhupada says the face is the index of the mind. Right? But then, Sukadeva Goswami, O Maharaj Parikshit, although the great sage Angira knew everything, so he already knew the answer. But still he was asking because of the relationship and helping Chitraketu think more clearly. That's Chitraketu explained that he wanted a son. Okay, so there's another one about questions that serve devotees. Mother, you are the reservoir of all riches. Please inform me of the root cause of your tribulations by which you have been reduced to such a weak state. Anyone those who said that? That was Parikshit Maharaj to Bhumi in the Mother Earth in the form of a cow. Right, so we ask questions sometimes out of love, out of compassion. Not only to learn something, but actually to help others understand the situations better as well. And the Nectar of Devotion talks about this kind of question, Uyam Akyati Prishtati, to reveal one's mind in confidence and to inquire confidentially, to reveal our minds. We talked about this earlier at the temple, how important it is to have friendships in Krishna consciousness. Someone you can tell everything to, and you know it's not going to end up on Facebook or Instagram. You can actually trust them. It's so important to have devote people in our lives like that. Even if it's 1 or 2, that's enough. It's really important. And this is two of the 6 exchanges of love between one devotee and another. So there's a skill to asking questions when you're talking to another devotee. That it should come from you generally care about them. You sincerely want to know what they have to say. You don't assume you know the answer already. And well, this is coming from the training we did earlier today. Positions is what we say we want, and interest is really what is our desire. So really listening for people's inner desires is an important part of asking questions. So there's 2 kinds of questions. There's 2 basic categories: closed-ended and open-ended. Anyone familiar with this distinction? So closed-ended is questions that can only answer yes or no. They don't get you very far. So if we had more time, I would go through this whole exercise. But a man walks into a shop. He says something to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper takes out a gun, points it to the man's head. The man says, "Thank you very much," and walks out of the shop. And so the question is, what did he say to the shopkeeper? And you can only ask closed-ended questions. So to save time, people will say, well, was it a real gun? Yes. Were they friends? No. Did he work at the shop? No. And it goes on like this. And honestly, we could be here until Satya Yuga, and you wouldn't get the answer by asking closed-ended questions. Because what he said was, do you have a cure for the hiccups? And sometimes you hear somebody that gets rid of the hiccups, so that's what he did. So you would never get that by asking closed-ended questions, right? Would anyone have asked the question, well, did he ask if it's a cure for the hiccups? Okay. So open-ended questions begin with what or how. And these are questions that you would ask a friend or someone who's going through a difficulty in their life and helping them think more clearly about the situation, like Anira Muni did, like King Maharaj Parikshit did. So imagine you're going through some challenges and someone says, well, how is that working for you? You know, say they're thinking of quitting their job and getting a new job. Or just a simple, tell me more. Right? What are the possibilities here? If somebody's talking about trying to make a decision in their life. What are you not willing to change? Again, if they're trying to make some kind of decision. What holds you back? What options do you see? How do you feel you've been treated? What might others see this? How might others see this situation? So this is a whole training that takes several hours about asking these kind of questions. But the idea is we can also serve devotees by asking them open-ended questions. Yes, you had your hand up?
Yeah, so reflection plays an important role in asking different kinds of questions, right? So on a day-to-day basis, is there any guideline on how you should do these kind of reflections, maybe at the end of the day, or how do you see reflection in how you are,
That's, by the way, a good open-ended question. It said, how do you see? He used the word how. So you're talking about reflections.
Yeah, reflection.
Well, one time Prabhupada said that every devotee should write, never mind 2 lines or 4 lines. Every day they should write, what did they realize about Krishna? And so anyone who's taken any kind of mental health program or studied mindfulness or self-help, these days, the last 20 years or so, they always talk about journaling, right? Prabhupada talked about this way before it was fashionable. And he said, so that's one thing, you keep a diary, and every day he said, even if it's 2 lines or 4 lines, could also be longer, but what we've realized about Krishna, how did we spend the last 24 hours, what did we do right, what can we improve, like that, can be very, very helpful. And sometimes, some of us, we're all used to being at keyboards all day. Sometimes it is good to actually get out a good pen, spend a little money and buy a good pen and a nice book, and actually there's some special thing about actually writing. Now you can do it on computer also. Even these days you can just do it with voice recognition software. But it's good to be reflective. A devotee is as thoughtful as a non-devotee is speculative. That's the Prabhupada quote. So yes, that's one way to do it. So yes, we should reveal our mind and hearts to our friend, and we should also be introspective. Prabhupada's diary, right? Jaladuta, right? Every day he was on the Jaladuta, he wrote his diary. At 26 Second Avenue, he kept a diary. So we can also do. It's very helpful. So that's practical. That'll cost you less than $10 probably. Go out and buy a nice notebook, a good pen. The only tricky thing is if you really want to be honest, you have to know where you're going to hide it. Right? That's the good thing. If it's on a computer, you can put password protection. But don't do Krishna 108. Everyone figures that one out. Because I travel a lot, right? And some people use, really like obvious passwords, like, Radhe 108 or Jai Prabhupada 108. Think of something a little bit more unique if you don't want others to read it. Other comments or questions? Yes, Prabhu.
Sometimes when you ask questions, you think you'll be judged.
Yeah.
So I think how do we come out of that?
Have you ever hesitated to ask a question because you think people might think it's a dumb question? Yeah. Generally, if you're thinking like that, 10 other people have the same question, and they also are afraid to raise their hands. So be a little bold. Prabhupada was a fortune. He quoted that saying, "Fortune favors the bold." One time they were walking in Kolkata, and they were walking past the Victorian Memorial. It's a big structure. And Prabhupada was there when it was being built. And one time he walked up the scaffolding all the way to the top. And they said, Prabhupada, you were so brave. Prabhupada said, I'm still so brave. Otherwise, how could I have come to your country with no money? So, it's another form of ego to worry about what other people think of us. So if we have a sincere question, just ask it. One last thing about questions, it is good to ask relevant questions. It's not very inspiring as the class giver if you give a class on a very specific topic and someone asks a totally different question that has nothing to do with what you just said for 45 minutes. And it's like, especially if they're asking like a managerial question. Prabhu, what do you think you should do if your temple president doesn't have time to talk to you? And then they try to draw you into ISKCON management. So I say, talk to me later. I'm not going to answer that question in class. Right? So it should be questions. Or if the speaker says any questions about any topic, then of course ask any topic. Okay, we have time for one more question, perhaps, if you have. So then it's always good to end a little early, even if it's 2 minutes early. So thank you very much for having me here tonight, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
What's the next program? Kirtan.